We left her in front of a church. Don't worry, someone will find her. That was the voicemail my mother left. My name is Danielle Rivers. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Has anyone ever used the person you love most, your child, to punish you for finally saying no? Because that's what happened to me. They left my 6-year-old daughter, Layla, in the cold, on the steps of a downtown church, like she was some kind of burden. A lesson.
Why?
Because I refused to give them $50,000 for my sister's dream business. Let me tell you everything. It started with a dinner, casual at first. Mom had made her special roast. Dad was unusually quiet, and Layla was coloring in the corner, happy just to be there. Then came the pitch. Your sister found the perfect location for her wellness spa, Mom said, like she was announcing a royal engagement. All she needs is a little help from family, Dad added, placing a manila folder on the table with numbers that screamed delusion. $220,000 budget. $50,000 loan requested from me. I laughed. Not to mock them, but because I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. You're doing well, my sister, Brianna, chimed in. You live in a gated community. You drive a Tesla. It's just money. Just money? They forgot the years I worked 3 jobs. The nights I walked home at midnight with Layla asleep on my shoulder. The debt I crawled out of on bloody hands and tired knees. I told them no. Politely. Firmly. I said, I can't. And even if I could, I won't risk Layla's future for someone else's gamble. They went silent. Then Mom stood, crossed her arms, and said something I'll never forget. You've abandoned this family. Don't be surprised when we teach you what that feels like. The words chilled me, but I thought they were just being dramatic. 3 weeks later, while I was in a meeting, I got the call. Blocked number. A church secretary. Ma'am, a little girl was dropped off here. She gave us your number. She says her name is Layla. My heart exploded in my chest. I raced across the city. She was sitting on the steps in a little pink sweater, clutching her sketchbook. Her cheeks were red from crying. When she saw me, she ran into my arms and said, Nana said you were busy. She said you'd come later. I collapsed into tears right there on the sidewalk. That night, I called my parents over a dozen times, left voicemails, screamed into the phone. Nothing. Until I got a single message. Don't ever say we didn't teach you consequences. They thought this was justice. They thought they were in control. But they forgot one thing. I don't fight fire with fire. I fight it with paper. And what they set in motion would end in a courtroom, where silence becomes evidence, and monsters finally get their masks ripped off. I didn't grow up in a loving family. I grew up in a performing family, one where image was everything and emotional cruelty was hidden behind just teasing or discipline. My parents didn't raise children. They sculpted trophies, and I was the dull one who wouldn't shine.
Brianna?
She was their golden child. Straight hair, pageant smile, drama club darling. When she failed, it was the teacher's fault. When she lied, it was a misunderstanding. When she spent rent money on a luxury purse. She's young and exploring her passions.
Me?
I was born 2 years earlier, 2 shades darker, and 3 grades ahead. My mistakes were scandals. My boundaries were insults. My success? You think you're better than us now? They didn't like me ambitious. They liked me available. And for years, I played the role they wanted. Paid for Brianna's tuition when she dropped out of college. Covered their bills when Dad got fired and didn't tell anyone. Even bought them a new fridge after Mom accidentally broke the old one during one of her silent tantrums. But when I got pregnant with Layla, things changed. I was 22. The father disappeared. And suddenly my family saw weakness, an opportunity. You need us now, Mom whispered with a strange glee. Now you understand what real struggle is. They didn't step up. They stepped on me. Free childcare came with strings. Groceries came with insults. Every favor was a favor I'd pay for tenfold, sometimes in money, mostly in guilt. But I endured it. For Layla. That little girl saved me from becoming them. She had this softness in her eyes, a joy they couldn't touch. She didn't just need me, she believed in me. And I promised I'd protect her from the emotional hunger that ruled our family like a silent religion. When I finally built a life, a good one, my parents didn't celebrate. They studied it like a heist target. They wanted access to my bank account, not connection.
And Brianna?
She never once said thank you for the help I gave her. She posted inspirational quotes and fake luxury vacations online while I paid off the debts she left behind like footprints. I told myself I was being generous, that I was rising above it, but their entitlement was cancer. Quiet, spreading, eating every boundary I tried to set. When I bought my first home, they showed up uninvited the next day. This room would be perfect for Brianna's wellness videos. Layla has too many toys. She needs to learn to share. You're just bitter because she found her calling. They mocked my parenting, questioned my choices, and gaslit my memories. So I started saying no. Not loudly, but firmly. No to surprise visits. No to financial gifts. No to being their ATM and emotional punching bag. And that, more than anything, infuriated them. Because the only thing narcissists hate more than being denied is being irrelevant. They saw my silence as betrayal. So they retaliated. By using Layla. By leaving her like a stray cat on a church doorstep. Just to remind me they still held some twisted form of power. But they underestimated one thing. I wasn't the same Danielle they'd broken down for years. I had evidence. I had a network. And I was done playing nice. The courts were about to see exactly who they were. Not the loving grandparents, but the dangerous manipulators who endangered a child for revenge. And this time, they were going to pay in full. At first, I thought it was just about the money. That refusing to lend them $50,000 to fund Brianna's ridiculous spa fantasy, complete with salt caves and energy alignment rooms, triggered their vendetta. But as I dug deeper, I realized this wasn't just retaliation. It was planned, because the more I looked, the more I saw how far they'd gone behind my back and how long they'd been circling like vultures around everything I had built. I started with the voicemail Mom left, the one where she said they'd left Layla at the church to teach me a lesson. It wasn't just cruel, it was criminal. So, I reported it. Quietly. Formally. CPS opened an investigation the next day. Not against me, but against them. They asked for any texts, calls, or recordings related to the abandonment. I gave them everything. And that's when I found it, an old group chat between Brianna, Mom, and Dad. Layla had once borrowed my phone to play a drawing game and accidentally backed up some messages to my cloud. There it was, plain as day. Screenshots. Conversations. Laughing about how spoiled Layla was. How entitled I had become. And the worst one. Mom, if we drop her at that downtown church, Danielle will come running. She needs to learn who really holds the cards. Brianna. And record it if she flips out. Let's make her look unstable. It wasn't just revenge. It was orchestrated humiliation. They didn't just want to hurt me, they wanted to discredit me. Paint me as dramatic, dangerous, ungrateful. I sat there shaking, holding my phone, wondering how I'd missed it for so long. Layla came in, hugging her stuffed panda. She climbed into my lap and whispered, "Mommy, am I in trouble?" I nearly broke. I kissed her forehead and said,
No, baby.
"You're safe. And no one will ever leave you behind again." That night, I wrote everything down. A full report. A timeline. I sent it to my lawyer, the investigator, and my therapist. But that wasn't all. Because when someone shows you who they are, once isn't enough.
So I kept going.
I reached out to Brianna's former business partner, the one she ghosted after their failed juice bar 2 years ago. He told me something chilling. Your mom co-signed a $35,000 loan under your name. I didn't know she forged it. She said you'd invested in Brianna. My stomach flipped. I checked my credit report, and there it was. A loan I had no knowledge of. Paid off mysteriously last year. I called the lender. They wouldn't talk at first, but after verifying my ID and showing proof I'd never signed those documents, They froze the account and opened a fraud case. It was deeper than disrespect. It was financial identity theft. The police got involved now. The loan documents, the voicemail, the group chat, all of it became part of an expanding criminal case. They wanted to punish me for saying no. They just opened the door to a legal firestorm. The CPS investigator called me 2 weeks later. Miss Rivers, based on what we've reviewed so far, this goes beyond a custody concern. We're recommending charges. Your parents may face prosecution. For the first time in years, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. They'd used my kindness like a doormat. Used my silence as a shield. Used my daughter like a pawn. But not anymore. The mask was off. And soon, the court would see what was really behind the smiles. I didn't scream. I didn't show up at their house. I didn't send angry texts or warn them what was coming. I just made appointments, collected documents, and watched them walk right into a courtroom trap they didn't know I'd built piece by piece. The CPS report had already been escalated to the district attorney's office. And my lawyer, Melanie, a quiet bulldog with a brain like a steel trap, helped me file for a restraining order and emergency custody protection, just in case they tried to retaliate again. We didn't just accuse them of child endangerment. We submitted voicemail evidence of abandonment, screenshots of the group chat planning it, affidavits from Layla's school therapist, who confirmed she was exhibiting signs of emotional trauma, financial records showing a history of identity theft, forged signatures, and ghost loans under my name. But that wasn't enough. I wanted their community to know. So I called in a favor from a journalist friend who ran a local investigative podcast. She had once covered a case on predatory guardianship abuse.
I said,
What if I told you there was a family using their grandchild as leverage to control their adult daughter and left her outside a church to make a point? She was silent for a second. Then she said, Get me the files. I didn't give her everything, just enough to raise eyebrows. Public opinion can be a powerful ally when truth is on your side. Within a week, an episode dropped titled The Golden Child Game, When Family Turns Toxic. It didn't name them directly, but anyone from our town could put the pieces together. Comments exploded. Sounds like the Hendersons. Wait, is this about Danielle Rivers? I always wondered how Brianna got her funding. Those poor kids. The same neighbors who once called my mom so sweet and praised Brianna's ambition were now gossiping, whispering, wondering. But I stayed quiet. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was restoring my record and protecting my daughter. Meanwhile, Brianna had no clue what was coming. She posted engagement photos with her spiritual coach, fiancé, on Instagram, tagged me, and captioned it. Toxic family members will always say no to your dreams. But the universe always finds a way. Dizzy, #manifesting my empire, #grateful not greedy. She had no idea that toxic family member had already frozen the fraudulent loan and reported her name on the list of co-conspirators. I also discovered they tried to take out another small business loan using my SSN again after the church incident. Melanie helped me build a full civil case for damages. We filed it quietly, served it loudly. When the process server handed my mom the legal packet, outside her church, no less, she screamed so loudly it echoed. She called me that night, hissing through the phone. You want to destroy your own family? I answered calmly.
No.
You already did. I'm just putting your pieces on display. The court date was set for 3 weeks later. And Layla? She was finally sleeping soundly again. She didn't ask for Nana or Grandpa. She didn't even mention them. Children know who's safe.
And she had chosen me.
What they didn't realize was this. I wasn't coming for them with fists or fire. I was coming with facts, with truth, with legal accountability. And once the judge heard everything, they wouldn't just lose me. They'd lose everything they thought they controlled. The courtroom was cold. Not in temperature, in energy. Rows of faces behind me, some familiar, some I hadn't seen in years. And at the front, 2 people I used to call Mom and Dad sat with arms crossed, faces tight, and not a shred of remorse between them. Brianna didn't show up. Of course not. She was probably too busy filming another, mindful living real, or editing her fake testimonials. Her wellness brand had mysteriously gone quiet online ever since the podcast episode aired. Even her fiancé had gone radio silent. But my parents? They still thought they could win. Still thought their charm, their carefully chosen smiles, their concerned expressions would somehow make this courtroom see me as the villain. What they didn't know was that this wasn't a family dispute. This was a legal reckoning. My lawyer began with the CPS report.
Come.
Measured. Then came the voicemail, played aloud for the room. We left her in front of a church. Don't worry, someone will find her. A woman in the back audibly gasped. Next, the screenshots of the group chat. Planning the abandonment. Strategizing how to discredit me. Joking about Layla being soft and too attached to her mother. Then, we dropped the forged documents. The fraudulent loans. The signatures that weren't mine. The payments traced back to my parents' accounts. Each piece felt like a hammer on the table. My father looked smaller with each revelation. His posture sank. His smirk disappeared. Mom? She clenched her jaw so tightly, I thought her teeth would snap. And then the judge asked me to speak. I stood. My hands were steady. Your Honor, I began. This isn't just about a loan, or even what they did to me. This is about what they did to a 6-year-old child who trusted them. I looked straight at them. My daughter cried for days. She still flinches when the doorbell rings. She asked me if Nana left her because she wasn't pretty enough. I paused, letting the weight sit. These people didn't act out of confusion. They acted out of cruelty. And they did it because I stopped being useful to them. They used my kindness, my silence, and then my child. That's not just immoral. That's dangerous. The judge nodded, then looked at my parents. Do you deny the recordings? The messages? The loan signatures? My father opened his mouth, then closed it again. My mother stood up and said the one thing I never thought I'd hear from her. She's always thought she was better than us. Not, I didn't do it. Not, I'm sorry. Just that. That was their defense. Entitlement. The judge leaned forward and said, This is one of the clearest cases of calculated emotional manipulation and financial abuse I've seen involving direct relatives. Custody protections will remain in place indefinitely. Civil proceedings for financial damages will continue as filed. And this court recommends full investigation by the district attorney's office regarding criminal fraud. I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just turned to Layla, sitting quietly with Melanie, and smiled. They lost. Not because I screamed louder, but because I refused to play their game. And now, the game board was mine. 2 weeks after the ruling, I got a call from a mutual family friend. She whispered, Danielle, they've been kicked out of their condo. It started there. Turns out, my parents had taken out a second mortgage on their retirement condo to pay off one of Brianna's earlier failed ventures. The bank had been sending warning notices for months, but with the fraud investigation open, their assets were frozen. They couldn't access their accounts, couldn't sell anything, couldn't even refinance. Then came the job losses. My dad was consulting part-time for a private firm. When the company's HR department received a formal notice that he was under investigation for financial fraud involving forged signatures and a minor's abandonment. Terminated. Instantly. My mother, who ran a local women's group and sat on a PDA advisory board, was quietly asked to resign from both due to reputational concerns. But it didn't end there, because the podcast that helped break their story, it went viral. Local newspapers picked it up. Then a national parenting blog shared it with a headline, How a 6-Year-Old's Church Abandonment Unmasked Generational Abuse. They didn't name us, but they didn't have to. People who knew us knew. Their neighbors stopped waving. The women Mom used to brunch with unfollowed her. Brianna? She went off the grid. Deleted her social media. Rumor had it, her fiancé had left her once he found out the car she gave him was leased under my name, one of the many gifts she forged using my credit. And the wellness spa? Cancelled. Lease revoked before it even opened. Apparently, the landlord had done a background check and found the fraud reports. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. Layla was enrolled in art therapy, and her laughter was starting to return. Every night, she would show me her drawings, full of color again, not the gray scribbles she'd made after the church incident. She once asked, "Are Nana and Grandpa going to say sorry?" I just kissed her hand and said, "Sometimes people don't say sorry, but we still get to heal." They never did apologize. Instead, I got a letter from my father, handwritten, no return address. It read, "You humiliated us. You broke this family apart. I hope your daughter learns one day how dangerous silence can be." I read it twice, then calmly placed it in my fireplace and lit a match. Because silence was dangerous. But not mine.
Theirs.
Their silence when I needed protection. Their silence when Brianna crossed lines. Their silence when they left my child alone on a church step. That silence echoed louder than any scream I could have ever made.
But now?
Their silence was eating them alive. Every fake smile they wore in public turned to suspicion. Every door they used to walk through with pride now stayed shut. And the worst punishment? They still believed they were right. But no one, not a single person, believed them anymore. The family they tried to destroy was thriving. Without them, healing isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with trumpets or applause. It slips in quietly, like morning sun through blinds, reminding you, slowly, that you survived the night. And that's exactly what happened. I didn't wake up one day over it, but I woke up one day and didn't flinch when the doorbell rang. Didn't check over my shoulder in courtrooms. Didn't second-guess every parenting decision. Instead, I started living. My career, the one I had paused 100 times for my family, took off again. I accepted a regional director role for a nonprofit focused on protecting women and children from financial abuse. A job I didn't just qualify for, a mission I embodied. I even gave a TED-style talk at a local university. When saying no saves a life. Layla sat in the front row, swinging her legs. She wore the red headband my mom once told her made her look wild. Now it made her look free. After the applause, a professor pulled me aside. "Would you ever consider turning your story into a training curriculum? What you lived through could change people's lives." That night, I started drafting chapters. Not out of spite, out of clarity. Because if I could turn the pages of my own life from victim to advocate, maybe someone else could too. Layla began painting again. This time, she painted a home with tall sunflowers and a mama bear sitting on a porch swing. She handed it to me and said, "That's you, Mom. You're the bear. And I'm safe now." I broke down. Not in pain, in release. We got a puppy. We baked cookies again. We danced in our pajamas to 2000s R&B like we used to before the storm. I even fell in love. Not with a rescuer, with a partner. Elijah. Quiet, steady, curious. He listened more than he spoke, and once told me, "I don't want to fix you. I just want to be here while you shine." I didn't need rescuing. But I welcomed someone who honored my light instead of stealing it. One afternoon, we sat with Layla on a picnic blanket under the tree in our backyard. She turned to me and asked, "Will Nana and Grandpa ever come back?" I looked at her soft brown eyes and answered with peace. "Maybe, but we don't need them to. Some losses are necessary. Not every door needs to be reopened. Some need to be locked, bricked up, and planted over. With sunflowers and joy and new beginnings." I didn't just rebuild my life. I reclaimed it, brick by brick, boundary by boundary. And I did it without revenge, without rage, just truth and time. That's the part they never expected. They thought losing them would destroy me. But losing them was how I found myself. It was a Sunday morning, warm, quiet, and slow. The kind of morning I once dreamed of having. Layla was still in bed, curled up with our puppy. Elijah was in the kitchen humming something soft, flipping pancakes. And I was sipping tea on the porch. When the knock came, 3 slow taps. I opened the door, and there they were. My mother, my father. They looked old. Not just in age, in soul. Like whatever polished armor they used to wear had rusted through. My mother's eyes dropped instantly when she saw me. My father didn't even try to fake a smile. They stood in silence for a moment before my dad said, We lost everything. I nodded once, quietly. Then my mom added, Your sister moved to Arizona. We haven't heard from her in months. She said we're toxic. A bitter irony, I thought. She's right, I replied softly. They blinked, like they weren't expecting honesty, like shame was still new to them. My father cleared his throat. We came to say we were wrong. About everything. We shouldn't have done what we did.
To you.
To Layla. I said nothing. Then my mother added, tears forming in the corners of her eyes. We were cruel, and we told ourselves we were parenting, but we were controlling, punishing. Silence settled between us. For a second, I remembered being 10 years old, hiding bruises under long sleeves. 17, forging my own college applications because girls don't need degrees. 25, raising Layla on my own while Brianna burned every bridge and blamed me for the ash. And then I looked behind me, at the warm kitchen, at the flowers Layla painted hanging by the window, at the man flipping pancakes for a child he didn't help create but fully loves. You want to come in? I asked. My mother's face lit up. Not today, I continued. You don't get to walk into peace you didn't help build. She deflated. My father looked down. We're sorry, he whispered. I know, I said. And I'm not bitter. I just finally understand. They tilted their heads. Understand what? Mom asked. I stepped outside and closed the door gently behind me. Then I looked them both in the eye. You only know how to love when you're in control. But love isn't control. It's care. And you taught me that by doing the opposite. I handed them a sealed envelope. Inside, a letter stating that Layla was no longer permitted to have unsupervised contact with either of them and a check for $1 to legally close the inheritance argument they tried to use in court. We're not enemies, I said. We're just done. Then I walked back inside. Layla was awake now, hugging Elijah. She looked up and asked, Who was at the door? I smiled. Just a reminder. Of what? That we're already whole. Later that evening, I stood by the window, watching the sunset cast gold across our little world. No more courtrooms. No more silence. No more shame. Just a woman, her daughter, and a life built from truth. And the final voiceover of the story? Let it be this. They left my daughter at a church like she was disposable. They underestimated what silence can protect and what a quiet woman can rebuild. I didn't burn them to the ground. I simply walked away and let the wind carry the ashes.